Hi everyone, how you going? Thanks for joining me again. Good to have your company. Hope everything going well for you and life is enjoyable. If it's not, hopefully this experience I'm about to read will give you a bit of a break from that and take you away from your earthly problems and remind you of who you truly are, which isn't the human body, the human problems, the human challenges you face. I mean, obviously, right at this very point in time, that's how it feels. But when the time comes, we all get to leave this human body and go back to the realm we came from and be reminded of who we truly are. But in the meantime, while we are living this human life and hopefully enjoying it as best as we can, and let's hope that this little experience here can remind you of what you truly are. And hopefully it can put into perspective that the challenges we face as humans are pretty insignificant, really. I know that might seem harsh if you're going through something that seems pretty extreme, but the truth of the matter is this is just a temporary experience, and although it might seem difficult at times, it's not going to last forever. And I find when I face challenges, drawing on my spiritual practice of realizing who I truly am takes away the severity of those issues I might be facing. So let's listen to another experience and be reminded again of where we come from, and hopefully that can help you in your day-to-day life. So this one is from a lady called Melinda C. It's from the NDERF.org website. If you are getting something out of these experiences, I urge you to go and check these websites out, because there's hundreds of experiences on there for you to read in your own time. But here we go with this one. It's not a long one, so let's have a listen. I was in an abusive relationship and suffering from postpartum depression. My mother-in-law at the time came over. She took my newborn child and told me that they were not going to let me and my husband raise him. My husband had left earlier that evening to go out. I was so depressed. I took drugs to leave this world. I couldn't go on living if they were going to take my child. My husband came home and found me on the floor in the bathroom and unconscious. His mum was a nurse, so he called her and she came over right away to help me come back to consciousness. They called an ambulance to come and get me. At the hospital, procedures were started to reverse the overdose. I was in and out of consciousness during this time, but several days later my condition severely deteriorated. Tubes were inserted into my body to help me breathe and get nutrients. My liver was completely failing. I was life-flighted to another hospital. When my family arrived, the specialists asked if they wanted to put me on the transplant list. They said that since I had attempted suicide, that maybe they should just let me go. But my father had died from suicide, and my stepdad did not want to put my mother through that again. He talked the medical specialist into putting me on the list. Being on the other side is the most wonderful feeling, and it's truly something I cannot explain with words. It's not a thinking thing. It's more of a feeling that is the most authentic, pure feeling, even beyond what we can imagine with our minds or senses. I know that there was a light and a passage from the darkness heading into the light. It's so hard to describe the light because it's so bright and vivid with colours that are not on earth. What I know from my experience is that I passed through some realm and then hovered around while entities of energy, light, and sound connected with my energy field. We communicated without words. I was trying to get across to them that I liked it here so much better and I wanted to stay. I was done with life because it hurt so badly. I was in a mentally and physically abusive relationship and had no means to escape it. They were threatening to take my newborn child and I couldn't live with that. I was afraid my family wouldn't help me get out of my situation because they were also afraid of my husband. My father was with me. His presence was so reassuring, and I knew that he had been watching over me, protecting me, and giving me signs, clues about when I get out over the years that I wouldn't get hurt. I felt the warm embrace of my grandfather and other loved ones who had passed over. It was more like our energies mingling or combining. I was filled with love and no feelings of guilt for who I was in my earthly life or any of my weaknesses. I was told by an entity that they needed me to go back. My family would suffer too much if they lost me. I knew that they would help me out of my situation and lead me into another life that would be fitting for me again. But I did not want to go back. I was trying to get across that everyone would be so much better off without me being a burden if I was alive. I kept saying I would come back again in another life and try all over again. The entities said they were so proud of me for what I'd withstood, how much I'd grown, and how wise and strong I really was in this life. They told me I was to come back and help others, and they would show me the way. I wasn't happy at the thought of going back, and then they showed me a scene. I was outside of my body looking in on my mother who was sitting quietly and crying in the room, with me on the ventilator. I could not decipher the words she was quietly saying, but I know that she was praying and speaking to passed on family. I could feel her pain and how much this would hurt her and my brothers and sisters. She knew what I'd been living through was extremely tough, and it's why I'd tried to commit suicide. She blamed my situation, not me. I just couldn't take it anymore, and I couldn't bear to feel how strongly this was hurting her. I told the entity that I was okay and would get back into my body now, and I did. Just then I began coughing because of the tubes, and they came into my room to do some checks. I couldn't really speak, and they told me they would take out the tube as soon as they could. This was a horrible experience. My situation was explained to me, and my immediate family all visited, and then they were going to go get some rest because they all needed it badly. I was safe from my husband because he was not allowed to visit me there. And now we would just wait because I needed the transplant as soon as possible to survive. I was fine. I already knew it. I was happy, and I knew what happens after this life, that we go someplace safe and we're not judged, just loved. I hadn't felt love for so long before I passed, and I needed it so badly. And now I knew that it's what we all have to look forward to. I didn't get a transplant. My test results started coming back within the normal range without medical intervention. The doctors told me this wasn't even possible. There's no way it could happen, and that it's probably false results, which sometimes occurs just before liver failure in rare cases. But within weeks, they sent me back to the first hospital. I was only getting 1 shot per day. Even from the first day, I was wanting to eat solid food and was asking to get up and walk and go out to the window. I knew I was going to be fine. The staff at the hospital was so excited. They couldn't believe I was back and that I looked so healthy and already. The last time they saw my body was extremely swollen from withholding water. My own family told me later that you couldn't even recognize me. And here I was, back again with a big smile on my face and no pain. I got a private room there, and when I took my first shower, I bellowed out the song "In the Garden," and I knew I had walked and talked with my father on the other side, and at that point in my life, I needed him more than ever. It was the most beautiful thing. The words just came to me, and I feel like my singing was from out of my body, like someone sang through me. I didn't have to stay at this hospital long either. 2 weeks and I could go home. I went with my family this time. I did not leave with my husband at the time. Even to this day, when I get blood work done, everything looks great. A few years ago, I asked a doctor, "Are you sure?" Because I had liver failure in the past, and they scared me into thinking that that would always be an issue for me. The doctor said, "You are in perfect health. Every single test result is within normal range and your vitals are even better than normal." Ever since I had my experience, my intuition has been stronger. I am empathetic with others and understand what that means. It doesn't scare me anymore. I get signs and messages that I've been missing all those years and know how to work with them. Electronic devices malfunction around me, and even ultrasounds machines do not work accurately on me anymore. I know that my purpose is to just be and to do things that make me happy, because that's how I'm healing the planet, by resonating my frequency. I paint and write and play music. I'm not afraid of circumstances. I just have some kind of understanding that everything is going to be okay. And I have been able to share that feeling with friends and loved ones. It's an entire new perspective, lacking any type of fear of outcomes. I find beauty in all things around me, especially in nature, and all animals are drawn to me. I was meant to travel for many years and connect with the many energies and areas of our country. And that's the end of her experience. So, like I said, a pretty short one. So basically, she is depressed. She is told that by her mother-in-law that the mum's going to take her baby. So her husband's mother is coming to her and saying, "You can't be the mother to my grandchild anymore." That's how I'm reading it anyway. So when her husband goes out later that day, she's so depressed she decides to take an overdose of drugs. Doesn't say what drugs she took, but she's depressed. The mum says she's going to take the grandmother says she's going to take her baby, and as soon as she gets a chance, when the house is empty and her husband leaves, she takes the overdose. And once she does that, she loses consciousness. When she passes over, she says she doesn't really go into much detail as to what happens. She doesn't say she hears a pop or she sees a tunnel. She just gets straight into it. She says, being on the other side is the most wonderful feeling, and it's truly something I cannot explain with words. Okay, just about every time I read one of these experiences, you hear this phrase, it cannot be explained with words. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because the words we use are words that describe the physical reality we are in. It describes everything from a physical perspective. So when you leave this realm and go to the non-physical, which is what the spiritual world is, there's no form there, there's no hard, solid matter there. It's formless. It's the total opposite on a lot of it's the total opposite on so many fronts because there is physical, here is physical, and there isn't. So the words we use are just symbols for what our brain sees in this physical realm and experiences in this physical realm. So when you go to this other realm where there's no physical forms and obviously therefore it looks totally different, the words that we use on this physical realm to describe this physical world are not going to be the words to describe this other place just aren't going to exist because the language we're used to here isn't the language that exists in this other realm. So this is why it is so difficult to go to this place and come back and explain what it's like because it's just totally different to what we're used to in the physical reality. So it's almost impossible to describe. And she goes into a little bit more detail, not as much detail as some people do, but she says that it's more of a feeling. She says it's not a place of thinking, and that just goes back to what I just said. She's what we do in this physical realm, in these physical human bodies, is think a lot. And once we are no longer in this physical form, I guess our minds and our thinking aren't functioning on that human level anymore. So describing this other place again takes on another level of complexity because it's not interpreted through a human mind, through a thought-based process. It's just there. And she says it's more of a feeling that is the most authentic, pure feeling. Beyond what we could ever imagine with our minds and our senses. She says that this next sentence is, I know that there was a light and a passage from the darkness heading into the light. So I guess that is her way of describing a tunnel a bit. She doesn't actually say that word tunnel. She calls it a passage. So yeah, I take back what I said a moment ago. She does, I guess, go through a little bit of a tunnel, but it's just not the first thing she describes when she crosses over to this other realm. And she says on this journey towards the light, she sees an array of colours that are not in this earthly realm where you see. Another thing that you hear over and over again in these experiences is that there are more colours that exist than what we are privy to in this existence. So if that's the case, if there's more colours that are available to be seen in this other dimension, it makes you begin to open your mind up a little bit and begin to think that maybe there's just a whole variety of experiences and dimensions that go way beyond what we would ever dream of on this realm, because for whatever reason our the veil is thick here and we get blocked out, and we lose memory of what it is exactly like in this other place. And when someone goes to this other dimension and comes back and sees these other colors and other dimensions, it truly blows your mind. But I guess the way I relate to this is I think, well, look at this universe, look at this endless realm of space with all these planets and stars and suns dotted throughout it, and that's pretty miraculous just on its own. Well, not pretty miraculous, it's absolutely intensely miraculous. And to think that that's just a fraction of what reality truly is, and to think that what we can see with our physical eyes is just the tip of the iceberg, and to realize that there's more dimensions and all types of experiences in this universe that we can't see or sense, and to think again on top of that this is the place we've come from is, it starts to get a little bit crazy, and you see why people become a little bit reluctant to share these experiences, because it can seem a little bit, I guess, too good to be true. So I like to be reminded of this. Reading these experiences gives me, I guess, a sense of not only awe and joy and wonder, but there's probably a little bit of a reminding to it for me too. Just a very small fraction when I read these experiences feels like part of me is resonating with what these people are saying, and I liken that to being reminded of what we truly are and where we've truly come from. So the next part of this bit, she doesn't really talk much about the actual experience of being in this other dimension. Like, the whole experience is pretty short, so I'm just sort of going through it line by line here and dissecting it a little bit and analysing it. So the next line says, "What I know from my experience is that I passed through some realm and then hovered around while entities of energy, light, and sound connected with my energy field." Again, here she is, doing a great job trying to explain the unexplainable. She's describing her soul, her consciousness, her spirit as an energy field, and everything and everyone around her, all these other beings around her, are also these energy fields, and they're made out of light and sound, and it's just it's a realm that isn't physical. So things are going to occur and seem very unusual when described from a physical perspective, which is what you and I have at this moment. So communication, she says, is done without words. So obviously there's no bodies walking around in this other dimension. There's no one with mouths, there's no one with lungs to be able to actually speak. So obviously communication is going to be done in a totally different way to what you and I do in this dimension, because there's no physical forms to speak. So communication is done telepathically, or she doesn't actually use that word, but there's no, I think it's done more through thoughts and well, not even thoughts, just feelings and experiences. And again, I'm having difficulty explaining exactly what this might be like for her. So these beings she seems to be communicating with on a telepathic level, she's trying to say to them that, look, I want to stay here. Life on Earth is too much. It hurts too badly. And she's having a pretty difficult experience in this physical realm. She says she's being mentally and physically abused by her partner, and she has no means to escape. So I guess she feels where she is right now is a better place to be, and coming back to Earth is too difficult for her to even comprehend, especially considering that her mother-in-law has just threatened to take her newborn child away. She's just, there's nothing she feels to come back to. It's just a dire situation that she wants to escape at any cost, which is, I guess, why she is trying to kill herself. She wants to get away from this darkness, this depression, and these situations that life can throw a lot of us. And I guess most of us can relate to what she is saying here on some level. We don't have to be mentally or physically abused to understand what she's saying here. Life will throw you challenges and put you in situations of darkness, and that will make us all sort of question why we're here and do we want to continue. And obviously some will actually, unfortunately, I guess is one word to describe it, seek to cease the continuation of their existence and do something drastic like take their own lives. Sometimes, the darkness can overwhelm people, and I wish that wasn't the case. And I feel part of my purpose from just a personal point of view here is to help people who have those sort of dark thoughts and depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts, because I've been there. I'm still not completely free of that. Sometimes I'll just have a really, really difficult moment in my life, and I just will want it to be all over. But the older I get, the more experienced I get at living this life, I know that those tougher times are just a temporary thing, and there's plenty of beauty in life, and you just have to wait out those moments of darkness, and that light will shine through again. But yeah, I think my purpose, just from, like I said, a personal point of view, is to help people with these darker times in their life, because I know so many people who have taken their own lives and their own life, and yeah, it's a horrible thing, mainly for the person who's left, the people who knew that people, they're left behind having to deal with that. And I'm not saying the person who has taken their own life is a bad person. They've got to that point in their life where living life is just too much, and that is their own decision to take it. And I'm not saying suicide's the right way to go. I'm just saying sometimes, I guess, unless sometimes it's just, I guess it seems for that person that is the only way out of being free from that pain. And I can relate to that. I've never actually gone and done it, but obviously, because I'm still talking to you, but I have a lot of empathy for those people. And this is a tricky subject, and suicide is, it's a big part of our society. It's not going away, and people, they don't like to talk about it for obvious reasons. And I've been exposed to it a lot, and I think every one of you listening out there probably knows someone who has taken their own life, and it might be for some of you someone very close, and others not as close, but we've all sort of know someone who knows someone at least. And it's a sad thing that our society is faced with in dealing with this subject, and there's no easy answer, but it's a subject that I would like to try and do what I can, I guess. I'm just one little person who's not going to change the world, but at least I'm going to give it a little bit of a go and try and use the experience I've had in what I've seen to push me towards helping others who have had to go through that and experience that tragedy. And darkness, and I just hopefully can do a little bit myself to take their pain away a little bit, or to change someone's mind and be even better. So she goes on to say in this experience, she says she feels her father was with me. So I guess her father's passed on. I don't remember her really explaining much more about this in this experience. So she says that she feels his presence. It was so reassuring, calming. She knows that he's been watching over her, protecting her, giving her signs and clues about when to get out over the years, so that I wouldn't get hurt. So she says that while she's crossed over here, I'll just put this into my own words, that she connects with her father who passed away, and she says that he reminds her during this connection that he's been watching over her the whole time he's been dead, and giving her guidance, giving her protection, trying to get her to leave this husband who's abusing her, giving her signs and clues as to how to get out of this relationship, how to escape the hurt. And that's a bit of comfort to everyone, I think, who's lost someone. And let's face it, we all have lost someone we know pretty well at some point in our lives, if you're old enough anyway. That person that you've lost, or those people that you've lost, are there watching you and guiding you and helping you and trying to push you towards situations in your life or experiences in your life that aren't going to be as painful as some of those experiences would be if you went, just to situations in life that are going to give you more joy, I guess. She says that after she's contacted by her father who's passed on, she then gets an embrace from her grandfather, and then there's other ones who come forward and give her some love. So here's this whole idea that our family on this life is very much connected, as and the ancestors who came before us are very much connected as a soul sort of family, and this connection is strong, and it's just interesting that soul families could incarnate into this lifetime and experience each other in a physical form. And it's even more interesting when you think how some families just do not function, they do not get on, and you'd think, why would a soul family, a spirit from the, a group of spirits from the other dimension come together and be so connected in this spiritual realm, but then come to Earth and find that they can't stand each other, and they hate and they abuse each other even. And why would a group of connected souls decide to have an experience on Earth where that is the case, where they actually even hate each other and get to the point of hurting each other on a physical level? It doesn't make much sense to me, but this is what you hear from these experiences, is that there are sort of soul groups or families, if you like, who do like to come and experience an Earth life together just to see what it's like. And just knowing that they are these ones, family members that we've lost, are up there watching us, guiding us, is comforting. And it's something that we should all take a bit of keep our minds open a little bit as to the fact that we are getting this guidance. And the more you encourage that guidance and believe that guidance is there, the more you start to see the truth of it. It is definitely there from my point of view anyway, that you do get this guidance from spirits and guides and souls who have crossed over, and probably ones we've never even met in this lifetime, who are just guides from another lifetime or another dimension, and they're out there. I can vouch for that. And the more you encourage and believe that that is the case, the more you'll start to see these signs and clues as to their existence. So during this communication with her, passed on ancestors, fathers, grandfathers, etc., she's trying to get across to them that it's too hard back on Earth. I'd rather just stay here with you guys, and please just let me stay here. I don't want to go back to that Earth life. It's too much for me, and I feel that I'm better off dead. Everyone, I'm too much of a burden when I'm alive. I just keep stuffing up, and I think it's just better off for everyone if I stay here with you. She even goes on to say I would come back again in another life and try this experience as a human all over again. This particular one, this particular body, this particular experience I'm having now is too much, and just let me stay here and plan another life with you guys and give it another go in another body, in another time where I might find it all a little bit easier. But these guides, these ancestors say, look, we're proud of you. You've gone through so much. All these experiences you've had have helped you grow. They've helped you become wise and strong, and they've made you the person you are today. And you had to have had these experiences to become who you are now. And in order to get a perspective as to what human life can be like, and the darkness a lot of humans face. And with this experience, you're able to come back and, they're urging her to come back and use what she's gone through as a way of understanding better what others like her are going through, and as a way of teaching, using this experience to give her strength to be there for others who might need her. So she's still not convinced, she'd rather stay there. These guides are saying, look, you've gone through all this stuff for a reason, and you need to go back to go and help others. And she's still not convinced. And then the guides say, okay, well, check this out. And they take her to an image or a vision, or I don't know, it doesn't say, it says just a scene. So it's interesting, like how do you look, can something from the non, can a being from the non-physical realm come down to earth and look at what's going on? Is that even the right word? It's an interesting thing to think about, I think. Like, how can, like, people say they go through these tunnels and passages to when they leave this physical realm and go into this other dimension. So when you go from this other dimension into the physical, how does that work? How you don't, I don't hear any experiences really about what this is like. What was it like before we came to this earth? I'd like to hear some more experiences about the process of choosing to come here, and what why we come here. But what's it like for a being in this other dimension? Can they come down to our physical realm and just have a look around? Is that the best way of thinking about it? Or because you're a multi-dimensional being in that place, have you sort of somehow always got an eye on what's happening in this dimension, in the physical realm? This is what this lady's saying anyway. She's saying that she's been watched, she's been guided by these beings who are her ancestors, and they've been keeping an eye on her during her whole life, and even sending her signs and clues, and it just, yeah, signs and clues are great. Don't get me wrong, I get them all the time, but why can't it go a step higher? And why can't communication be done on a telepathic level? Like, why does it have to be so vague and mysterious? Is that because it's difficult for these other beings to communicate with us the way we communicate to each other in the spiritual realm? Is it hard to break this veil between the non-physical and the physical? And I guess it probably is. I guess that is why it is better to be open, to be receptive to this stuff. And the more receptive we are to this other realm existing, the more opportunity we're giving to this other realm to contact us. It just seems to be the more belief and intention we have towards contacting these guides, that they're able to contact us back. If we show we're enthusiastic for their messages, for their guidance, for their love, they're more open to send it. And why it has to be that way, I don't understand. Surely if they're watching us all the time, you'd think that they would know that we all need guidance all the time, because this life is very challenging and we can all use more help. It's just, it seems that there seems to be a level of leaving us to our own devices in a way here that just seems to be part of this experience, that we need to live without the help of these other people we've known for eternity, just for a short amount of time. And I guess praying to them and asking for help and guidance from your guides to God is going to show that you're open to believing them, you're open to receiving their help, and you're going to be more receptive, because that's the frame of mind you're on. And maybe they are just helping us all the time, like this lady says, and we just don't notice it because we're so lost in the drama of this existence, and this drama is overwhelming. It draws you in, and gets your total concentration, doesn't it? So when the physical reality is your world and what is happening in it just totally consumes you, you're not going to be open to other dimensional contact, obviously, because you're too focused on what's happening in this realm. And I think a lot of us fall into that category because it's a hard place. You're struggling to survive every day, so it's no wonder that we all are focused on what is happening right in front of us, rather than trying to keep that open mind that there is more to this physical realm, and we're just in a physical reality at the moment, and that's not the be all and end all of it. But it's easy to get lost down here. So yeah, they show her this scene, and in this scene she sees her mum, and her mum is crying. She's hurting because she's now losing her daughter to suicide, and she'd already lost her husband to suicide. So this poor woman, you know, is suffering, truly suffering, and the daughter, who has just taken an overdose, who is sharing this experience with us. This is the experience I'm reading. The one of the daughter is showing a scene of her mum, and her mum is upset, crying over a dying body because she's about to lose another family member to suicide. And this is what kind of gets her to realize, okay, look, guys, I think now you're showing me this, now you're showing me how upset my mum is, I think I should probably get back into my body and do the right thing. And as she says that, boom, in she goes. There's no explanation of what that journey is like, what that transition from the non-physical to the physical is like. It's just like a click of the fingers, and she's back in her body. And she says, the first thing she says is, "Wow, back in my horrible experience." Yeah, from a place of love and freedom and no form, just peace. It seems to back into this physical realm, it would be a shock and hard to take, and all those challenges and problems would pretty much start to weigh down on your mind again almost immediately. So yeah, she's back in her body. She's got her mum there. She says she feels safe from the husband who's been abusing her because he is not allowed to visit her in this hospital while she is recovering. And she says but the different thing about being back in the body this time, prior to her having this experience, is she has this under this overwhelming feeling that everything is going to be fine, and she just knows it, and she feels this little bit of happiness or peace that she's brought back from this other realm, and it just seems to be buzzing throughout her body and protecting her a little bit from the darkness this world can dish out. And you hear this quite often in near-death experiences. People come back with an inner vibration that is higher than what most of us have been exposed to in this realm, and this seems to protect them from the darkness. But usually it's just a temporary thing, and over the coming weeks and months it starts to dissipate and fade away, and slowly but surely these people who have these near-death experiences come back to the normal vibration that we all seem to have in this place. I mean, obviously that's a generalization. Some people are going to be buzzing higher than others, and I guess all of us go through different stages throughout just one day of different levels of frequency. Like, you're in a good mood and your vibration will be good, you'll feel loving and everything will be fine, but then life will either, it'll something will happen and that vibration will be quickly overtaken by something scary which will lower it, and you'll be back down to a lower level, or you'll just start to get tired, and that will also lower your vibrational frequency, and life won't seem as good and pleasurable to be a part of. It's just the way this experience is designed. It's almost torturous in a way how we go through these ups and downs, and the older you get, you start to realize there's no way you can um, avoid them. It's just part of the human experience. So with this higher vibration she's brought back, her health is able to recover pretty quickly. She says that the doctors are absolutely bewildered that she's, number one, recovered, like not died, and then even more surprised when they find out that she doesn't even need a transplant anymore. Her liver is coming back to normal, and she is able to eat and drink and walk a lot quicker than what the doctors and experts expected that would happen. So again, another miracle that occurs when someone has a near-death experience, not just the experience itself, but people will often come back and find that their health improves and their conditions quickly evaporate, and they come back to a normal level of health faster than they would have if it was a normal recovery. So it says 2 weeks later she can go home, and she goes home with her family this time. She does not leave with her abusive husband. It doesn't actually say anything about the son, or I can't remember, her child at the time, if she was able to keep him or her. I think it's a him. I think it's a son. But yeah, I guess she just says her family, so I guess that could include him. So yeah, she just goes on to say, she goes and visits another doctor just to get a second opinion to make sure the doctors at the hospital weren't getting it all wrong. And she says, yep, this other doctor says you're in perfect health. You're even, more healthier than a normal person, whatever that means. So yeah, she's obviously really, really well, and it goes on to explain a few of the after effects of this near death experience, not just the health side of it. She's also able to have better intuition, more empathy, less fear, and she's able to read signs and messages from guides and angels like she wasn't picking up on before. She says, and this occurs every now and then too, that electronic devices malfunction around her, and even ultrasound machines do not accurately work anymore. So I don't know why that is, but you hear that every now and then, that once someone's had an NDE, they can't wear watches or computers don't work around them. So that would make living in our current age difficult, but I don't know. What would you prefer? Would you prefer a profound NDE with some reassurance that, this other dimension is where you come from and you are loved and you go back to this place after you die? Would you rather have an experience like that and give up things like watches and iPads and iPhones and computers? But I guess unless you've had an experience that is profound, it's a hard thing to know, but I guess losing your ability to use electronic devices you'd get used to it, you'd get around it, and I personally would probably prefer a profound near-death experience. Uh, she says she's become more creative. She paints and writes and plays music, and this is a line I think we should all try to take on a little bit. Um, have some kind of understanding that everything is going to be okay, always. And share that feeling of everything's going to be okay with friends and loved ones. And I guess the way I'm interpreting that line is she now knows that this human experience is just a temporary thing, that whatever happens, it's going to be okay, because in the end we get to go home to God, to the light, to our spirit family. And although this human experience might hurt, that one day we get to leave it and go back home and be around those that love us unconditionally. And I guess that's what she means by saying everything is going to be okay. She also has a totally new perspective on this life. She doesn't fear any outcomes anymore. She just goes with the flow. She's not afraid of circumstances. She's able to see the beauty in everything, and nature, in animals. They're just, for her, she sees them from a whole new perspective. And she says that even animals are drawn to her now. You do hear about this every now and then. I don't know what that means. It just seems to be a common thing that animals are more connected to those who have had an NDE, and I can't describe what the ins and outs of how that works, but it just seems to be another one of those side effects that occur after people have these experiences. And this last line I don't understand. It says, I was meant to travel for many years and connect with the many energies and areas of our country. I guess that could mean she was always meant to come back to Earth after this experience and go traveling and connect with as many people as possible and share this message. And this is part of the reason she had this experience and had the life she's had, to push her to the point of suicide so she could experience an NDE. You could look at it that way, and this is why she's had the life she's had. Maybe she chose these difficulties, and again, it's hard to hear. It's hard to even say that sometimes, because I know all of us, and some have had some really, really horrible experiences, and to think that we could possibly choose that before we come here, or we're somehow guided towards participating in these horrendous things that really hurt us. It's hard to hear that at some level could be our choice, but sometimes these experiences seem to point to the fact that this could be the case. And I just throw my hands up in the air and go, okay, I'm just reading the experience here. I don't know the truth of that. Part of me thinks that's a big possibility, and part of me thinks we've all got our own free will and we're able to run around and do what we want in this life. And yeah, I don't know. But yeah, let's give me a couple of minutes to just catch my breath, and then I'll wrap it up. So I'll just wrap up today by sharing with you a TV show that I was watching on Netflix. It's about 4 seasons. I watched the first one, and it's called Fauda, or Fauda. It's like a Israeli or Palestinian word. It means, I think, riot or something like that. But the show is about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict from the point of view of a Israeli undercover CIA type guy, and it's a little bit over the top, and but I found it okay. The first season was full of action, and he didn't know what direction it was going to take. But the thing that I took away from it mostly is the scenes where they go into Palestine, and you hear how these Palestinians talk to each other, and every second word is it's about God. I don't know how truly representative it is of how Palestinian people actually talk to each other, but if it's even close to how it is, it's amazing. They'll say God will guide you, and God is grand when something good happens, or put your trust in God. It's like every second or third sentence they talk about God, and bring that into their vocabulary a lot, and it just made me realize how separate, where I live anyway, the concept, God isn't really discussed or brought into the language at all. It's just I can see how the society I'm in, which is in Australia, has drifted away from more spiritual direction into a more, I guess, materialistic, scientific one, and with that drift as, the connection or understanding or relationship to God has drifted away a bit. And I look at my dad, who's a total atheist, and I was too up until a few years ago, and I can see why, because there's no reminders. It's not as in your face as much as some of these other countries where it's a big part of who they are. Just it's ingrained into them from birth that there is a God, and God is always with you. And just from my point of view, this was my own personal experience. This was not a common discussion. I went to the odd church thing, but every once a year or so, but I was never exposed to religion or the concept of God as much as what I'm seeing in this show that I'm watching anyway. It's an accepted part of their society, and the way I was brought up, it wasn't that way at all. So, yeah, I'm enjoying that show from that point of view as well, just seeing how these Palestinians are so religious, and it's awesome to see that they have so much faith in God, and although they're running around doing some pretty horrific things, for me, I just found it enjoyable because I got to see a different culture, and see how they connected to God. I guess the closest way is I can see how, we talk about God in Australia is when we say, "Oh my God." That's about the only time I can really think that the word God is brought into into our vocabulary on a regular basis. And the other times is, when you say Jesus Christ as a way of, I don't know, cursing, is that the right word? You say it in a negative way. But, from this show, from what I saw, that they talk about God in a loving way, that God is always there, that, it was just beautiful to see. So, yeah, if that sounds interesting to you and you've got Netflix, go and check it out. But, yeah, be warned, it is violent, it is gruesome, it is hard to watch in parts, but, I found it interesting. I've never really watched the show from that part of the world before, so to see the streets, what the trees look like, and just, that's the sort of thing I take notice of these days. It's not so much about the action of what the characters are doing. I like to look at it from a bigger picture. But thank you for listening. You did great to get through the whole thing again. I love you. I hope you are having a nice little time in your life. I hope that time lasts for a long time. I hope when the darkness comes again, it's not as bad as it can be. And just remember that God is with you, that even though you might not be able to see it or experience it, I know that God is there. I know she is there or he is there, whatever you want to say. So take comfort in that. Take comfort in the fact that this life, although it is hard and beautiful, it's not permanent. And enjoy it if you can. Just try and enjoy it. Thank you for listening. I love you. Talk to you next week. Goodbye.